Okay, so we're going to start with a reading from Emmett Fox. Phyllis is still out sick, but improving, just not improving enough to be with us today. So the Emmett Fox reading for 7 September, no grave robbing. And he starts, don't be a grave robber. Let corpses alone. In due course, nature disposes of such remains if they are left undisturbed. Every time you dig up an old grievance or an old mistake by rehearsing it in your mind, or still worse, by telling someone else about it, you are simply ripping open a grave. And you know what you may expect to find. Live the present. Prepare intelligently for the future, and let the past alone. This is what Jesus meant when he said, let the dead bury their dead. Make a law for yourself today that you are not going to touch mentally any negative thing that has happened up to the present moment. And keep that law. Life is too precious for grave robbing. The past is past. Liquidate it. If a negative memory comes to your mind, cremate it with the right thought, the fire of love, and then forget it. Now, the topic today is it okay to feel happy now? And it began with a reflective article I came across titled, Is It Okay to Be Happy When the World is Falling Apart? And the author, Avram Alpert, started out, a friend of mine called the other day with news of two major life achievements. His first book had been published, and his university had granted him tenure. And yet he said he was miserable. How could he be happy about his success when so many terrible things were happening in the world? And that was something that I had been giving some thought to. So I figured, I see the article, okay, I get the nudge. And then Alpert reviews some of the horrible news that we're seeing, hearing, encountering, and of course, the stuff in our own local community as well. So I'm not going to go into all those. We know what he's talking about. And so he goes on to ask the question, is it cruel to be happy when there's so much destruction? Is it foolish to tie one's mental health to an unpredictable and often violent world? And then he went on into more philosophical. He makes the note that in many cultural and religious beliefs, it is believed that we should feel the pain of others. In Islam, for instance, it is a requisite for the spiritual walk that you suffer for on behalf of those who are suffering. And he references that you can find versions of this in Buddhism, Hinduism, Judaism, Christianity. And he notes, for instance, St. Paul, for just as the body is one and has many members, so it is with Christ. If one member suffers, all suffer together with it. And Ralph Waldo Emerson said about the same thing. But then there's, if you will, the flip side. The Hindu approach distinguishes worldly happiness, which it regards as temporary and dependent on external conditions, and spiritual bliss, which we've talked recently about the difference between happiness and joy in that regard. Joy being the joy of the spiritual connection, which is deeper, less ephemeral than happiness. In Hinduism, they preach that we should be detached from worldly outcomes, both pleasant and painful, We don't ignore suffering. We don't, go ape over good news. Um, they argue that the proper response is always compassionate action. And in Baha'i, uh, the Abdul Baha, who was, I think, the second or third leader, um, wrote in talks he gave in Paris or spoke, "Joy gives us wings. In times of joy, our strength is more vital, our intellect keener, and our understanding less clouded. We seem better able to cope with the world and to find our own sphere of usefulness." But then he goes on, when sadness visits us, we become weak, our strength leaves us, our comprehension is dim, our intelligence is veiled. And but he points out that no human remains untouched by both influences. Uh, the sorrow, the grief that exists from what he calls the world of matter, and the spiritual world, which bestows joy and happiness. Uh, excuse me. So, feeling what others feel, he says, does not limit you to their pain. And Alpert makes the note that St. Paul says, if one member is honored, all rejoice with it. Um, and it's reasonable that if we are going to experience the injuries done to others, shouldn't we also experience their joy? But if we focus so much on what's going wrong, and here we get back to Fox, if we focus so much on what's going wrong in the world and neglect the goodness, then we're really getting, in my words here, a cockeyed sense of the world and a cockeyed and very limited sense of who we are and what we're walking through. We need to be able to understand both. Not to say that we should accept suffering as, okay, that's just the way it is, but we're not hopeless, we're not helpless. And Emmett Fox, in other writings, has talked about the importance of shifting one's focus from problems to the unchanging, loving nature of God. That instead of suffering from what we're experiencing that's toxic or our own negative thoughts, we respond with positive, with constructive action, with constructive, positive thinking, what he calls aligning your mental state with the divine. So, he tends to give steps. So step one, stop thinking about the difficulty or the suffering. Step two, think about God and God's love instead, and shift your consciousness toward God's love. Now that includes, as he was talking about in the earlier reading, live in the present moment. The present is never intolerable, he says. The present is the only place where we have action and where we can really live. If we think about the future, worry about the future, wasted effort. If we emphasize the past, think uh, and what's the term for chewing cud? Ruminate about the past, wasted time, wasted effort. Now he says, bless the troubling situations. And that's sort of an extension of where I'm coming from, that so there are plenty of people, plenty of suffering situations, plenty of discomforting things that we're experiencing so often in our own lives. But we don't have to stay there. And my take on the suffering that we encounter that we're aware of is something that they taught me in transactional analysis. don't take on other people's suffering. Don't feel it for them, because it ain't going to do them any good. They're still going to be suffering. And what it's doing is making you less happy, shortening your life, and as Baha'u'llah says, it diminishes your capacity for response in positive ways. And as I was writing this, I was reminded of a healer many years ago whom I can't say I became acquainted with, but I became aware of her and visited one of her talks once. She believed that the only way she could heal someone was by taking on their pain or their suffering or their illness and having it pass through her. Yeah, I see Lori R. shaking her head. Right. She died a very early death, having, even if she tried to pass through it, some of it stuck, having all these physical and mental illnesses just residing in her body. This is what TA says you don't do. You can acknowledge it, but don't shut off your own experience of joy. You can determine what you can do that, within reason, that can perhaps address the situation, alleviate it. If nothing else, as Emmett Fox says, bless it. And sometimes there's other things. Maybe it's, pamphleting. Maybe it's going and having a talk with your representative, if we're talking about things in government. Sometimes I was hearing a story about the 16-year-old. The Pope is just taking on the next step towards sainthood, and the story about him was that even when he was 8 years old, he'd see someone on the street go homeless, and he'd go get someone to give them a sleeping bag. Or the story that probably most of you have heard. Usually it's a boy, but it could be a girl walking down the beach, picking up starfish that have been stranded by the tide and throwing them back in the ocean. And the old gentleman, whom we can take metaphorically as standard wisdom, coming the other way and stops and says, "What are you doing?" "I'm throwing the starfish in the ocean." "Why are you doing that?" "Well, if they're stranded on the beach, they're going to die." "Well, look at all the starfish here. You can't really make a difference." And the little girl picks one up and says, "I'm going to make a difference to this one." Don't feel overwhelmed by all the suffering. Do find what it is you can contribute. What starfish can you throw back in? For Lori R., she heals. Me, the place that I'm strongest now is helping someone heal. Example on my side, I think most of you know I do weddings too, and we had a couple arrange an appointment for a wedding coming in here, and 2 days before, the bride called and canceled, said the wedding was off. And Marie, I think it was, took the call and said that she sounded really shaken. So I just texted her and said, "I'm betting you're really hurting. Let me give you a lift session to help you get through this." That's what I could do. I used to go on marches. I used to send letters and telegrams. I'm not called to do that anymore. Maybe I will sometime. Maybe an immigrant hiding from ICE will show up at the doorstep, and I'll know I'm supposed to hide him, like that Dutch family did with the Frank family. I don't know. All I can do is what's presented to me today. And that's true for each one of us here. We're following a spiritual path. And even though I don't define how you're supposed to follow, I think each of you is intent on following divine leading to lift the world up in whatever way we're called. I know, Susie DP has told me about the horses that she's rescued. She's eliminated some suffering. Ellie talks to people in her small town, touching people where they're hurting. Phyllis, let's see, I've got to figure out what to say without giving too much away. Phyllis came across the adult son of a crazy set of parents and it was clear that he, trying to stay in their good graces, was really fucked up. And she befriended him. And just by showing him she cared, staying in touch as he tried to get himself stable, he's becoming more stable. That was what the divine presented to her. If you place before the divine, here I am, show me what to do today, and just relax about it. Because as Fox says, don't plan for the future, you got right now. And right now, and being a vessel of the divine, representing the divine love, and being open to the nudge that the divine gives you, or the opportunity that the divine gives you, that's all we can do. That doesn't mean that we have to pretend that there's no suffering. No, we can acknowledge that there is suffering. We don't have to feel it, though, for others. Bear in mind, that's their experience. We can be aware of it. We can be empathetic. But as transactional analysis says, keep the barrier. Keep yourself okay. And whatever you're doing out of love to raise the frequency of this place, do what you can. Don't beat yourself up. Don't push yourself to extinction. Your job is to emerge from this moment as strong or stronger as the last moment. To emerge from this moment open to the next leading, the next purpose you're given, the next set of words you're shown to share with somebody. And carry with you the intent that anything you do will ultimately be able to lift up one person and thus influence the world for the better, and thus influence the universe or universes of which we may know nothing in this life. But the frequencies go everywhere. So just as you're open to leadings to throw the next starfish in, don't close off the opportunities for every happiness that comes your way, for every joyous connection with the divine that comes your way. Because the more you're allowing yourself to live in the happiness and the joy, the more you have to share with the world and with those who are hurting and with those who are walking in happiness too. Because when 2 or 3 or more are walking in happiness, it has a multiplying effect. And why not be a multiplier? So, as connected as members of an unfurling world, Emmett Fox says the world is always unfolding, unfurling, and a complex world. There's no way we can escape experiencing the complete range of experiences, whether they're ours or witnessing someone else, joyous or hurting. And thus, it is okay for us to live in this moment, sometimes both experiencing great delight and happiness and sadness and empathy for someone or someones who are hurting. And as I was coming to a close, I came across a quote from a Quaker that, in a way, addresses this in terms of throwing a starfish in. Um, Karen, you just joined us. The metaphor is picking a starfish off the beach and throwing it in the water so it can survive when the tide's gone out. And even though there are thousands out there all suffering, you do what you can. You're never going to get it all. Uh, Edward Burroughs in the 1600s wrote, "We are not for names, nor men, nor titles of government, nor are we for this party or that party, nor against another because of his name and pretense, but we are for justice and mercy and truth and peace and true freedom, that these may be exalted." And whatever our walk is, what a nice, how to put it, what do you call the beacons out on the coast to keep you from running into rocks? Lighthouse. What a nice lighthouse to aim ourselves for. And so I will say, adding to this, we can add to our own happiness and our own joy as we find our own ways to work for justice, mercy, truth, peace, and true freedom, and to amplify God's love. That's what I have to say today, guys, gals. Any thoughts to contribute? Go ahead, Ellie, and then we'll get to Lori.
Thank you for your talk. It was more of a confirmation talk today that you gave for me, because sometimes I doubt what I can do. Being that it's trauma response, that I know, but I still doubt because of what I've been through, and I question constantly. And the goddess, the universe comes around and shows me, hey, you've got this, through whatever situation it is. I was talking to a group of online friends this week, and, I made the comment that, sometimes my wonder is like a childlike wonderment, because I can see, look at this, look at that. And I go, we see it, we know it, but it's like when we get to connect with it, that's where the joy is. And, I said it because I get excited over the simple and the small things like that. And the gal I was talking to said, you just unknowingly solved something for me and you didn't even realize it. And it's just like, awesome. She hasn't told me what it was. That's fine. But just, you just did this. Awesome. And then, this past week I went, I've been working with a neighbor for, a while now, with trying to, help her with her health. And, I told her, I go, you make the appointment, I'll go with you. And she finally made the appointment. And so we went in. And we know this doctor, personally, because of the things that we go in with Donovan for. And he looked at me and, she goes, well, I brought her because she kept encouraging me. I do what I do. And, he was able to help her. And, as we were leaving, I looked back and he whispered, mouthed the words, thank you, because apparently he's been trying to get her in over the past year and a half. So, you know, as you were saying, justice, mercy, truth, joy, peace, true freedom, those things are the things that, you know, what we really want. So how can we do those things? Focus on those things, raise our frequencies to those things. So thank you, Brian.
Thank you, and thank you for sharing. Lori R.
I have so much, it's hard to know what to say. I love the term you use, compassionate action. That is such a broad spectrum that you could go into. But, there are so many people in this world that never feel compassion from those around them. There are so many that were raised in a passionless home. There were so many that were in a passionless school, had passionless friends. They think somebody wants something if you're compassionate toward them. Like, what's wrong with you? Why are you being nice to me? Or why are you encouraging me?
Mm-hmm.
And I think that compassionate action is what can completely turn people's lives around. And it seems like such a little thing, but it can open such a large door in somebody's life. Just like you talked about Phyllis befriending this gentleman. She completely changed his life just by that one action of spending time with him, acknowledging him, and offering him herself to be a friend.
Yes.
And there's wonderful things that are going to come from that. And one thing I've learned over the years, no matter how hard a time that we're going through, when you have a heart for others, it doesn't matter. When you go out, when I go to the store, sometimes I see someone carrying the weight of the world on their shoulders. And I just ask Spirit, what can I say to encourage them? It might be, you look beautiful today, or your hair looks so lovely, or I love the color that you're wearing. Just something to acknowledge them, to let them know they're seen, to let them know somebody heard them today. And sometimes I just watch their shoulders fall down to the ground.
Yeah.
And there's a couple of people that said, can I hug you? It some of the smallest things, even just opening a door for somebody, it means so much because you took the time to let them know that they were important. And I love that about this lifetime. And it doesn't matter what we're going through, we can put that aside. And the other important thing that you said is not to take their hurt on, not to take their problem on, not to take their sickness on. So many times there's a difference in being empathetic and being an empath. When you're an empath, you automatically, I believe, take on people's feelings until you learn one day that you can shield and you can ground, and there are ways to stop taking all of that in. But when we're empathetic with other people, they feel our heart in such a different way because it's almost like they can see into your own heart and mind, and they know that you're actually not necessarily taking in what they're feeling, but they know you're totally understanding what they're feeling. Whether you give an example that you've been through it before or not. So, no matter what's happening in your life, always look for a way to look at those around you. Sometimes we rush so much when we go to the store, wherever we're going, the gas station, anywhere. You just never know when that one person might need that blessing that day. And hopefully, we're paying attention so we can provide it.
That reminds me, last week, I recounted the story of a minister who with his wife was in line at the grocery store, and they realized just ahead of them was one of the members of the congregation, a woman who'd been abandoned by her husband and was trying to raise their 3 kids, and they noticed that she was buying just the bare essentials and realized that she just must not have enough money for a decent purchase of groceries. And as he recounted, he said, I looked at my wife, she nodded yes. And we said, let us give you a gift. And they bought her groceries. He said, we didn't even have to exchange words. We both knew why we were there at that moment. You just never know. And John McNeil, one of the leaders of the transactional analysis movement now, got to be at least in his 80s. When I attended one of his seminars, and one of the probably the thing that stuck hardest to me, he said, the most important thing that we as TA counselors can give a client is we can show them love, because most of them have never experienced being loved. Now, I parse my words a little differently. We can show them positive, nurturing love, because for many of them, their experience of love is, or sort of thing. So, such as the examples you were mentioning, Lori, even just a few words to someone so they feel acknowledged and seen as of value can make such a big difference. And we don't have to suffer in order to bring good. Anyone else with thoughts before we go to silence? Yes, Susie.
Okay, so this brought to mind something that happened to me yesterday, actually. But the story behind it is because of the damage in my brain, I go out and get under the lights in a big store and I will get a violent headache. So a few years ago, I went looking for a baseball cap. Had to be purple. And I'm looking for this exact brim shape. And the store I was in, well, yeah, this company carries purple ones. It's exactly what I was looking for. And they said they'd order one for me because they were going to order. And so not too long after, I get the call, do you still want the hat? Yes, I bought it. They sent it to me. I open up the box. Now, one thing that I really don't like is glittery, blingy things. The whole front end of this baseball cap plus the top of the brim is glitter. And I just, yuck. And I'm going, oh crap. And something said, go try it on. So I go into the bathroom where the lights are up just at the right place where they would hit my face. And you know, that brim is exactly the right shape. So I said, well, okay, what the heck? I've got the hat, I'll keep it. So I wear this hat every time I go out and every time I go shopping or anything. Inside, I wear that hat to shade my face. Yesterday, I had been in the grocery store and I came out and I was putting the groceries in the truck and this guy stops in front of me and he said, oh, you are so awesome. Really? What did I do? That hat is so shiny and bright and it brightened my day. And I really needed that today. I get that a lot. People will say, wow, that's a great hat. And the response is always, well, you know, I wore it just for you today. And they kind of eyebrows go up, what? Well, obviously I had to have worn it just for you today because you're the one who noticed it. And look, it brings joy to you and it brings you a smile. And so therefore, you know, thank you for noticing it. I'm glad I could help you out. He laughed so hard. And he said, it's been a really crappy week, and this has lightened up everything for me. And all I had to do was wear that hat that I've been wearing for, I don't know, 4 or 5 years now. It's, so
Yes.
it's one person at a time, and you don't have to do really anything spectacular. I wear the hat because it helps me, but oh gosh, look what I get to do for other people. And somebody, at least one, every time, never fails. Somebody notices the hat, and they always notice it with a smile. Okay. So it's, it can be a little thing. It can be a really little thing. I never thought I would get that kind of a reaction out of that hat, but boy, yeah, so I keep wearing it. And I've been wearing it for years, and it sits on the seat of the truck, so it's always there when I go out. And you can't tell that hat's probably 4 or 5 years old now. It looks brand new. Still. So anyway, that's all.
Thank you. Thank you. Anyone else to share a thought or a story? Oh, okay, Leah.
Well, I really don't have a whole lot to say because between Ellie and Lori and now Susie, it kind of filled up whatever I was going to say. So kind of left me with not much, but I still wanted you to know that, yeah, this talk really resonated with me because to me, just like Lori and Susie and the Star Child, yeah, you just even just giving a smile for someone can lift up their day because you don't know what's going on. And sometimes you're just there to, hey, and keep on going. But it's something they needed to see because we are all glittery star children anyway to start with. So, so yeah, that's all I really wanted to say right now.
Okay, thank you, Leah. Okay, let's move into our silence, folks, and see what the universe might want to communicate to each of us. I'll call you back in a few minutes. Let me bring us to a close. I believe Lori Kay will be talking next week. I don't know what the topic will be, but you'll hear about it when I do. So we thank the divine for having brought us here today. We thank the divine for all the good that is in our lives now, for all the blessings that we've received and all the blessings to come. We thank the divine for always putting us in the perfect place to bring good to people who need it. We thank the divine for bringing so much good to us. And we thank the divine for watching over us and helping us maximize our walk with the divine until we return here again to this community. We give full credit to God for all the good that's in our lives. We say thank you, thank you, thank you, and amen. So, until next time, take good care, folks.